Welcome everyone to Weekend Escapades. Today we are 30 miles west of Cedar City, Utah in old Irontown, Ghost Town. This used to be called Iron City. Let's take a look at what is left and how it became the ghost town that it is today. Now, this town existed due to the fact the mountains were iron rich. Iron was needed back in the day for simple things such as building wagon wheels and Dutch ovens. And many of these items were critical for survival. Not to mention, there was good money to be made on iron in this area. Pioneers began to settle and develop this area in 1851. Ebenezer Hanks provided the investment to establish the Union Iron Company, later known as the Great Western Iron Company. This location is surrounded by Dixie National Forest, which is full of pinyon pines and junipers, which help fuel the kilns and make the charcoal to keep them nice and hot. Now, all of this wood was brought to these oxygen-free kilns. So what happened was they would use all of this wood to get it nice and hot, starting the fire at the bottom, and this would make for a more softer and more pliable piece of iron. The workers would stack the piles of juniper and pinyon inside these beehives in these kilns. And what it would do is create a long process, and it would get the wood to the charcoal state needed. And it would take about 12 days for the kiln to produce 50 bushels of charcoal, and that would be enough to process about 1 ton of iron ore. This was a tremendous amount of work here in Old Irontown. There were 2 of these beehive kilns here on the property. This one here has fallen down and is on the ground, and the one that we showed is the only one left. What we're looking at here is what's left of the molding house. Now you can see here in the center it has a big round area there where they kept things hot, of course. And then it's got these little slots like this right here off of both sides. And this is where it was molded, of course, and where they made the iron and got it ready in its state to transfer. Not only is it very interesting to know that they used to produce iron, but how they produced all of this stone to build these heavy structures, to me, is always fascinating. Everything that we see in ghost towns was just made out of heavy stone, and that had to be as much work to build these areas as it was to make iron. And we've stopped by a lot of mining communities and taken a look at these ghost towns, and there's always piles of slag in the area. These are the leftover things where they cleaned out the furnaces, all the charcoal bits and things that were there that cover the ground. Now, one thing that they have here is a Spanish arrastra. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Comment below if I'm not. And this is where they hook up a donkey or a mule, and they would turn this around and would drag a giant rock to crush, of course, all the ore there and get things done. Kind of amazing that that is still here on the property. Now, there's another amazing piece here on the property. This is an old forging hood, or forge hood. And it was mostly located in the molding house, and it helped funnel the smoke out of the building. And it's still in pretty good shape laying there on the ground. There's a lot of foundations here on the property, but this next location is pretty well intact. And here it is, the blast furnace. Limestone served as the catalyst to melt the iron ore and remove its impurities. As the iron was heated up, the furnace, it separated, with the heavier metal sinking to the bottom, while the impurities bound to the limestone rose to the top, and that material is known as slag, as we saw earlier here in the video. And by 1871, this little mining town had a post office, schoolhouse, boarding house, general store, and a butcher shop. At its peak, they were producing 5 to 7 tons of pig iron a day, supplying ore to the Utah Western Railroad and mining companies in Pioche, Nevada. As we walk around the property, we'll find this area here to be very rocky and beautiful. But we notice that Pinto Creek is located here at the back. It was necessary for the ironworks to supply the water, so it is the water source that helped Old Irontown get off the ground. Here's the remains of the only residence that was there on the property. Very well built. You see the size of these walls, and it has kind of an adobe stucco wall inside and out, and there's what's left of the fireplace. And it has heavy timbers in the floor, so this was a well-constructed home for its time. Now, the reason this is a ghost town and Utah's first ghost town As it was originated in 1851, and the ironworks were closed in 1876 due to huge increases in shipping costs and their larger contracts they were not able to provide because of the expense that was there for shipping. This is the other side of that kiln, and here is the mountains around where they got all the open mine for that ore, for that iron ore that they used to bring into Old Irontown, and a good view of all those pinyon pines off in the distance that they used to build the charcoal inside these kilns. We hope you enjoyed this little trip back in time to Old Irontown. And until our next adventure, goodbye from Weekend Escapades.